Hey, what's up, guys? It's Will back once again for some UFC predictions. We're here for UFC 276. Israel Adesanya defends his UFC middleweight championship against the next contender in line, the Killer Gorilla, Jared Cannonier. It's been a wee while. I actually caught a ban on YouTube for a month, which was rather weird. So I was off. That's the reason I've not kind of been around the last 4 to 6 weeks, is because I caught a ban for a month. So that was weird, considering I was talking about on a soccer stream and supposedly I instigated violence, considering for the last 10 years I've been speaking about fights. It's quite funny. So yeah, so I'm back for this card. I'll be back for the foreseeable future going forward, breaking down fights. So yeah, I've had some people reach out and wonder, where are you? Where are you? Well, that's the reason. So YouTube's been kind of playing silly buggers and gave me a ban for that. But back for a good pay-per-view this week. A couple of title fights, some spots I'm liking really early on in the week here. We're into Wednesday morning now. So yeah, let's get into talking about these fights. If you can throw a like on the video, if you like what you see and you fancy subscribing to the channel, that would be great as well. And we'll see where we can kind of go from there. So we're going to start off in the UFC women's. It's 135 for a bantamweight division. We've got Jessica Rose Clark against Julija Stoliarenko. This fight just kind of screams out to me that Jessica Rose Clark is going to be winning large parts of this fight until she gets caught in something. So that wasn't a great look coming off the Stephanie Egger fight where she got armbarred in that one there. And the go-to move pretty much for Stoliarenko is the armbar. But it's been a while. I mean, she's in the UFC. She's really not came through all that great. Losses to Yana Kunitskaya, Julia Avila, and Alexis Davis last time by decision. Where, like I say, she lost to Egger to Jessica Rose Clark, but she's come for wins over Jocelyn Edwards and Sarah Alpar, the kind of fights before that. So pretty low-level opposition for both girls. I think Alexis Davis was a solid fight for Stoliarenko. But both these girls just kind of really numbers in this division at the minute. I don't see much kind of progression. I can't really see them put them 3 and 4 fight wins streaks together in that division. Like I say, I think that Jessica Rose Clark, she is the better boxer. I think Stoliarenko is definitely a game fighter. She'll come forward, she'll look to throw, but predominantly she's going to look to try and get this to the ground and try and find a submission. For me, I'm seeing a lot. Actually, last week when I was watching some fights in Jessica Rose Clark, I was pretty tempted to actually bet at -120, and then I was like, I'm just going to leave this fight alone. It's not for me at all, and I'm just going to leave it. So, like I say, it rings out that I should be picking Jessica Rose Clark in this spot. I am going to make her my pick here, but would it surprise me if she gets caught in something from dominating a fight? No, I really wouldn't at all. So she's going to be my pick. I'm going to pick her via decision there. Moving on, we've got Brad Tavares against Dricus du Plessis. So dog was doing something silly there. This is another one where earlier on in the week I was thinking about betting the dog. And at the time, the dog was Dricus du Plessis. By the time I even got round to watching some fights and just a day or two passed, he's now like -125, I think I'm seeing. So the money's kind of on the Brad side there. I think it's got the potential to be a close fight, but I like the power of Dricus. I think Dricus is going to end up catching him here. He's a guy that I've been watching for a long time over in the South African scene, and then he came over to KSW, caused a massive shock there by beating Robocop, Roberto Soldic, who is, in my opinion, one of the top prospects outside the UFC. I'm still waiting to. I thought he was going to be in the UFC kind of by now. I kind of heard inklings that they were trying to sign him up after meeting UFC officials earlier on this year, and he knocked him out in the third round in that one there. They rematched in the second round, in the rematch, and he got knocked out in the third round. And since he's came to the UFC, I mean, I think he's beat a couple of guys that you kind of expect him to beat. Marcus Perez was a guy that's a little bit flaky kind of here and there, but he's a guy it was definitely hittable, and you've seen that Dricus has got serious power in his hands there. Trevin Giles is another one there. It's a decent one to have in your record, considering Trevin Giles is a guy that's been around the UFC for a fair amount of time. and he got that second round finish there. Brad Tavares, I mean, this guy's been around the UFC for a long ass time. I've spoke about a lot of fights for this guy in the UFC, come off the Ultimate Fighter. I'm just looking at my pick history here in Tapology, and it's 50-50. So not the greatest picks that I've got him, like 16 predictions it says I've got him there. But like I say, Brad Tavares, 34 years old now. That's kind of crazy. When was his first fight? 2012. Crazy. Over 10 years nearly in the UFC. And right now he's on a 2-fight win streak with decision wins over Antonio Carlos Jr. and Omari Akhmedov. The guy's just a consummate professional, very, very solid, a hard guy to really take out, look good against. The only kind of loss in the last few years where he's got knocked out badly was that Shabazian loss there where he caught that head kick. But overall, he's a solid Hawaiian fighter, heart of a lion like those Hawaii fighters are. I think if he avoids the power shots that Dricus throws, I think that he might be able to just kind of win kind of close-ish minutes. But to me, I think Dricus is going to land a shot and put him out. So my pick is going to be Dricus du Plessis. I'm going to take him via second round knockout in that one there. I just think one shot's going to put him in the back foot, and Dricus is going to catch him with a shot in that one there. Jessica Eye against Macy Barber here. I think this is a good spot for Macy Barber. I don't really like her line. I don't know what her line is. I was looking at the lines earlier on. I thought she was like minus 220, minus 225, I think it was. That's a little bit too rich for me, but she should have the advantages here. I mean, in a pomp, was a very, very good striker, good boxer, had good output, could land some decent shots, but I just don't think she's... I mean, you've kind of got the OnlyFans fade here as well. But like I say, she's 35, 36 years old now. She's not getting any kind of easy fights, especially when she made her way up to fighting Valentina. And that was a devastating knockout there where she got absolutely planted on her back and it was looking up at the lights eventually. Came back with a really actually decent win over Viviane Araújo. But since then, lost to Cynthia Calvillo, lost to Jojo, lost to Jennifer Maya, and to be honest with you, those girls aren't bad kind of losses, but I think here that I can see what the UFC are trying to do by getting Macy Barber a win here over an established vet who's been around a hell of a long time, 10-2 record. Just looking there at Tapology, I'm 5-0 in predictions on other fights. There, so that's interesting. I never really take that much stock into that, but just looking at it there, she's coming off 2 wins in a row. Wins over Miranda Maverick, which I know a lot of people did not like that decision. I actually thought she won that was the right decision in my opinion. I know I bet her in that spot as an underdog, but I still think that that was the right decision. And then she kind of really stifled Montana De La Rosa, stopped the takedowns. Nothing really came from Montana, and she really just won out a fairly easy decision. With her 2 losses, we've known she's got the Roxanne fight, where she injured herself, and Roxanne just used that experience, kept going in that fight and got the decision. Alexa Grasso, which I thought it was just a bad matchup for her in that one there. But I like where she's at. I think she's at the Valley Flow, I think it is, in Chicago. She's getting some really good looks in there. I like her in this spot. I think Jessica, in my opinion, Jessica is she's at the end of her UFC career. You're seeing a lot of these girls from many moons ago, like your Felice Herrigs and so on. Jessica, I think, is at that kind of tail end of her career where sooner rather than later she's going to hang up those gloves. I think Macy Barber can catch her with some clean shots. I think she's got the power to knock her out. I think if they get into kind of striking affairs between them, I think if I'm Macy Barber, I'm trying to stop the takedowns because I think that's what Jessica could potentially bring to the table here. I think she can knock her out, but more than likely it's going to end in a decision. So I'll take Macy Barber for the win in that one there. Moving on, we are in the middleweight division. We've got striker v grappler. We've got Uriah Hall against Andre Muniz here. And I mean, it's your prototypical fight here of your striker and Uriah Hall and your devastating grappler and Andre Muniz. We all know about what Uriah Hall's kind of game is. He has got devastating striking when he throws it together. I think he has got one-shot knockout power. We've seen that in spots throughout his UFC career. We've seen that before he came into the UFC. got some devastating striking, and I mean, when he does put it all together, he's very, very good. He had obviously those couple of wins over a couple of legends in Anderson Silva, and they had that win over Chris Weidman due to the gruesome injury. But I think that, I mean, that the Sean Strickland one, he just kind of got beat up in that one completely and utterly beat up. I'll bring up the stats for that fight there, where I think Sean Strickland is just he is a crazy, crazy dude who came out there. He got numerous takedowns in the fight, but completely outlanded and just kind of really put Uriah Hall on his back foot that entire fight there and really made it tough for him. But I mean, before that, he was on a 4-fight win streak, but I think this one here, it's kind of like the Barber and I fight there, where they're lining up this Andre Muniz guy who has come into the UFC, and he's like devastating with some of these submissions that he's pulling off. He's got 3 wins, 3 first-round wins, 3 first-round armbars. He's been snapping limbs. You give this guy the slightest opportunity to get a hold of that arm, he's taken it home, and he's shown that. We haven't seen an awful lot of his striking. If I'm Uriah Hall, I'm fighting at distance here, trying to keep it away inside kind of close quarters here, trying to just pot shot him from distance. Hopefully he can catch him, maybe put him off. And if he can land that one shot that can maybe off-put Muniz there, but I feel if this hits the ground one time, then he's going to catch a submission. So that's kind of what I'm leaning on here. I think he's going to come out fairly quick, trying to connect on a shot there to potentially put him against the cage, drag him to the ground. And we have seen spots where Uriah Hall has been kind of pushed against the cage and taken down in spots. But like I say, Muniz, he's shown that he can get takedowns as well. You saw that in the Eric Anders fight. You saw that in the Jacare fight. You saw that in the Royal fight. You saw that way back the Dana White Contender Series fight. He got 3 takedowns in that one in a decision victory there. So I'm going to pick Andre Muniz. I was thinking, right, is he parlay material? I think he is. But if this fight maybe goes into the later half of the fight, it might become very interesting. So as a parlay piece, I think I'm going to pass. I'm going to sit back and watch this fight and see how it goes. But for me, I'm going to pick Andre Muniz. I'm going to pick him via submission within the first 7 minutes of this fight. Yeah, I think he finds another sub. Moving on, we have Donald Cowboy Cerrone against Jim Miller 2. This fight, I mean, just when they put this together, I remember this first fight for the simple reason that this happened in 2014, and I think it was the day that I was flying out to Dublin for UFC, obviously for UFC Dublin. I think that was Conor McGregor against Diego Brandao, which that seems an absolute crazy thing that it was 2014. Let me bring this up here. 2015. Yeah. 2014, that is crazy. Where he won, that was a Wednesday night card. I remember that because we don't have many midweek cards in the UFC, but that was one. I think obviously had the 2 cards in the 1 week. And yeah, craziness. And where he won via head kick and followed up in the second round. And these are two of the guys in the UFC that have had the most fights. I think that's actually a very similar amount of fights between them. But they've beat the who's who. They've been to the kind of highest part of the lightweight division, fighting for titles, having big fights. The McGregor fight for Cerrone was a huge one where I'm sure he got a good paycheck. But he's faced the who's who of that division, your Gaethjes, your Fergusons, McGregor, your Pettis, Dos Anjos, whoever you want it to be. I think that obviously he was supposed to fight Joe Lozon a couple of times. That fight just looks nixed from the get-go. He had a problem. Then Joe Lozon had a leg problem on fight day where he couldn't walk. So that's not great. Now this fight has been kind of rescheduled a couple of weeks later where it's at 170, which I think obviously helps Cerrone because I thought he did not look great in that last weight cut. He had 2 relatively close weight cuts down to 155. I think this helps him here. But I mean, he has not looked good in a long time. When was the last win he had in the UFC? Al Iaquinta, surely that's not right. Al Iaquinta, 2019, 3 years ago. And that was after the Alexander Hernandez fight, which I thought he looked amazing in that fight. He looked like that's the last time we saw the real cowboy, in my opinion, where he was coming at you dangerous at every spot. That kid was talking so much smash that week, and he absolutely came through and annihilated him. That was an underdog bet. I remember cashing that one there. But like I say, he's lost to the best guys in the sport. Had that no contest, obviously, with Nico Price. To me, if Jim Miller can catch him early, I think that he's got a really good opportunity here. And he's a guy that's, I mean, he looks fresh. He looks like he's came over the Lyme disease issues that he had. I thought this guy was done a couple of years ago. Then he came back with that beautiful armbar, kind of Roosevelt Roberts. Lost to Vince Pichel, who really embraced the grind in that fight there. Lost to Joe Solecki, which was another one. Beat Eric Gonzalez, who I just don't think... He's a fun fighter, but he's just not on the level of Jim Miller, and he will find you out if that is the case. And Nicholas Motti caught there and knocked him out. I'm actually going to pick Donald Cerrone here, and I kind of, when I was watching some fights earlier on today, I was surprised by... I didn't really go back and watch the previous fight, but I think that if he can kind of move into the second part of this fight, and if it gets there, I think he can take over potentially. I think that in a dog spot, I don't think it's the worst dog play either. And I'll probably be playing quite a bit of them in DraftKings this week. So I've been losing money non-stop in DraftKings for the last couple of months. So I'll go back to the Cerrone well there. And I was on the kind of lows on side for their fights on that one, but never came through. So I'm going to pick Donald Cerrone. I'm actually going to pick him via decision. I think this could be a very kind of slow-paced fight. But I can see maybe Donald Cerrone late in the fight coming through and maybe winning a couple of rounds, but not overly confident. Do not want to really bet the fight whatsoever, but I'll pick Donald Cerrone there. Ian Gary against Gabe Green. I don't want to say I'm a massive fan of Ian Gary. I've obviously watched his entire career coming through Cage Warriors into the UFC. A fair amount of hype on him. And I don't think he's been overly impressive in his UFC debut, albeit his 2 fights in his UFC debut, honestly. I think that there is more to come from, but when you look at that division, I think as a prospect, I can see him being a top 15 guy. I really can, because he's only a very young kid, 25 years old, not even that, I don't think. And he's got his 2 wins over Darian Weeks, which was a fight where he really kept him at range there, hit him with some really good combination strikes, long jabs. And then he had the Jordan Williams fight where he was losing that first round, caught him at the end of the first round, knocked him out. And like I say, Darian Weeks, he stopped the takedowns in that one, which was obviously going to be the game plan for Weeks to get the fight to the ground there. Good, long, big for the division. Got that tall man's defense, which nobody really kind of likes in that division. If that doesn't continue to get shored up, now he is at Sanford MMA. If that doesn't get shored up, someone's going to catch him with that in the welterweight division. But as a prospect, I don't think he's bad. I still think he is relatively green. He's only had 9 fights, not been in the sport overly that long. And he is starting to put all together. I like the fact, like I say, that he's moved out to America, kind of settled down, got some roots there, married, got a kid on the way, I believe. So, but Gabe Green's a dog. Gabe Green is an absolute dog. Seen that in the last fight against Leoness there, where he got dropped, looked like he was in a bit of trouble, managed to get back to his feet. But then just kept on going, man. Like, he terminated in that second round, found a finish. The Phil Rowe fight there, really chopped down Phil Rowe and really kind of hurt him and got a couple of knockdowns in that fight. And then he had the D-Rod fight, which was, I actually thought he fought a really good fight against a really top guy in Daniel Rodriguez there. So to me, this is a spot where I'm like, am I on the underdog here? Because I've got a lot of respect for like Ian Gary. And I do think he's going to start making strides in his game, being more at an established camp. But Gabe Green is, when did he have that fight? Actually, April 30th. So he's kind of jumping back in there relatively quick, a couple of months later. Like I say, he did get dropped in that fight. I'm more on the Ian Gary side now. I was actually thinking about betting him last week, but I don't know. I bet Ian Gary in his 2 UFC fights. This is one that if I can maybe get down to that minus 150, it's been kind of hovering like minus 175 here in the UK. If it maybe gets to minus 150, it might kind of tickle me to maybe jump on that a little bit. But Gabe Green is a tough out. And I think this will be Ian Gary's best win if he can get it, because Gabriel, like you say, doesn't stop. A lot of people really don't like Ian Gary. I've seen that through like Twitter and whatever, but and they're kind of looking for him to win. So I think a lot of people will be on Gabe Green this week. And I don't think it's the worst dog play, honestly. I just think that the length, if he can get those defenses up, doesn't get hit with like hard shots and gets outstruck, I think he can win this fight with the length that he's got. So I'm going to take Ian Gary via decision there. Moving on, I think we're on to the main card now. This is a great fight. Brad Riddell against Jalen Turner. I've been pretty much, to my detriment, I don't want to say against Jalen Turner. I thought he had all the things there to make him a great fight. I wasn't sure whether he was going to put it all together. And by God, is he putting it all together. He is looking really, really solid now. Dangerous in every aspect, massive for the division, good aesthetics with his length, his straight shots down the pipe. If you get in too close, he's got knees and elbows that can hurt you. The leverage the guy's got is unreal. And I think he's a black belt as well, so he's got a dangerous ground game. I tried to fade him last time out against Jimmy Malarkey. I thought Jimmy was having a few decent shots there in that first round, but you could see the more impactful shots were coming from Jalen Turner. Uros Medic, I was on him there. He was an underdog in that spot there. Completely blew through that guy in about 4 minutes. And like I said, he's on a 4-fight win streak, and that Kulabau win actually looks relatively good now, considering he's beaten fairly decent guys down at the division he's in. And then, like I say, Brock Weaver was never really UFC caliber. Medic, I'm still a little bit not too sure about him. Malarkey's a good win because he's tough, hard-nosed, hard to get out of there, and he did it with aplomb here. Brad Riddell's another guy here who's very, very hard-nosed, very tough, been around a long time in the combat sports sport. And like I say, he's a guy here that's, I think he can... there's another one where I was thinking, it's Brad Riddell, a really live dog here. And I think he is, considering the way he fights. But Jalen, to me right now, Jalen Turner just seems like he's in that spot where I'm trying to think of the guy that you're really going to need, like a Matt Favola type, actually. It's probably the kind of fight that Jalen Turner's last loss, continue to spam those takedowns, fight him, attempt after attempt after attempt. If you can do that, Matt Favola did that numerous times in that fight and won the fight through that. But when you look at Brad Riddell, I mean, he has takedowns. We saw it in the Drew Dober fight. That was a great fight. Back and forth fight where he outlanded him, but landed those takedowns. Those are the big things that really won him that fight. And he's had them in the past in the Jimmy Malarkey one. I'm still not too sure on his takedown defense. So if Jalen was to get in there and maybe get those arms clasped together, I think he could potentially get takedowns. But to me, I think if anyone's attempting those TDs in this fight, it's going to be coming from the Riddell side to try and counteract the length and the output that is coming from him. But he's a devastating striker himself. But he did get knocked out last time against Rafael Fiziev, and no shame in that, because Fiziev is a really solid striker. I think I'm going to have to lean with Jalen Turner. I'm seeing a lot of love for him. Really, right now, it's hard to pick against him. He seems in the best shape he's been in, and he's really putting it all together. A lot of respect for his game. Very, very dangerous. I've tried fading him a couple of times, and that's just not worked out too well. But he's a very talented fighter, and he's got a very tough fight here. A good step up, I believe, here. But I think he passes it. I think he's got an opportunity potentially to finish this fight as well, where it will probably knock him into that top 15 of that division. And respect to him for that. So my pick's going to be Jalen Turner. I actually think I'm going to pick him via submission. I think he could choke out Brad Riddell here. So I've got him in that one there. Moving on, we've got Robbie Lawler. This guy, geez, I've been watching this guy forever, against Bryan Barberena. This should be a great fight. I thought Barbarena was done. I didn't think he was going to re-sign with the UFC. He was for walking away. He was done. And I thought, I wasn't too sure. I thought he was a little bit lucky, actually. It was a close fight against Matt Brown. It was very, very close, where I think it could have went either way. I think I more edged it for Matt Brown in that one. But ultimately, he got the job done. He said that he was happy to kind of move away, go back to his farm and do what he had to do there. I mean, the last time we seen Robbie Lawler was against Nick Diaz, and that was just, I mean, that was a rematch of one of the most epic knockouts from years ago, and he really kind of put on Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz hadn't fought in God knows how long. This to me is a tough fight to pick because the fan in me is wanting to pick Robbie Lawler, but I'm just not sure where. I don't know. Barberena's tough, man. He can eat a lot of strikes and keep on coming, really. He's on a 2-fight win streak, obviously, Darian Weeks and Matt Brown. I think if these two stand in the middle, I think the more cleaner striking is coming from Robbie Lawler. But Barberena is a bit of a terminator. Like I said, I've not looked into this one a hell of a lot. I've had stuff to do, and this was a fight further down that I've not looked into. I don't really want to bet this fight all too much. I think I'll lean with Robbie Lawler. I think I'm going to lean with him over a very, very close 15-minute fight. I think this could be one of these ones where you might be screaming at the TV and at the judge's decision, thinking that your guy won, but the other guy actually did. I'm going to lean with Robbie Lawler, but I think that's more the fan pick inside me. I want no part of betting this fight. I'm going to sit back and watch a wee bit, and hopefully Robbie gets another win because, like I say, he is one of the guys I do love fighting. Before what I remember watching him at UFC, I think it was 189, that McGregor card, and him against McDonald is just something that's forever going to be embedded in my head. Seeing that live, being there, and the atmosphere was unreal. So, yeah, I'm going to go Robbie Lawler on that one there. The Sugar Show is back. We've got Sean O'Malley against Pedro Munhoz. This is a big step up for Sean O'Malley from what he's been facing previously. Obviously, he's got the win over. He's on a 3-fight win streak since that Cheeto loss there, where he kind of got the legs kicked from underneath him and the ankle, the nerve went on it, whatever. Came back, got that win over Almeida. He's no longer in the UFC. Chris Matinho, no longer in the UFC. Put a beating on that kid, landed numerous strikes, and then got a beautiful knockout over, I think, a fairly decent guy in Howley Paiva. And that one there, and now he's making the jump into the ranked guys now. I think I want to say Munhoz is a top 10 guy. So last week I was 100% coming into this fight thinking, I think this is an underdog bet I can go after in Pedro Munhoz, because this is probably a step down to what he's been facing for God knows how long, because he's fought the creme de la creme of that division. Your Sterlings, your Edgars, your Cruzes. I think Aldo's in there as well. Marlon Moraes, Rafael Assunção back in the day, Cody Garbrandt. He's fought everyone in that division, and he's dangerous, and he's as game as fuck. He's as game a guy as you're going to get in the UFC. Comes forward, not defensively sound, but also delivers a high ton of offense, a lot of violence in his striking and his overall game. So I was coming in here thinking, right, a plus 200 shot at least on Pedro Munhoz. He could maybe chop away at the legs of Sean O'Malley, which we've seen before. But when I came into this and I was just watching them both, I think Sean O'Malley is going to really dominate this fight over 15 minutes. I think his length, his speed, his combinations, I just think Pedro's going to be there to be hit all day. Now, it doesn't mean that Pedro can't come back and dominate him or counter him, with some decent strikes himself. And he could absolutely hurt. He's not going to be shooting takedowns. It's something that Pedro Munhoz does not do. I think it'd be to his advantage to maybe check out and see, right, what's the ground game of O'Malley like. I've been listening to Tankino talking about how O'Malley's ground game is really, really good. We've just not seen it yet, and so on and so on. So it's something that I think if he could do, he maybe should try. I think if he's at a striking fight here with O'Malley, I just think the more impactful shots over 15 minutes are really going to hurt him. I think he's going to bust him up. Like I say, I think Pedro has got path to victory, and at the number, I don't think it's the worst dog bet. I actually really like Sean O'Malley as a parlay piece this week at -2. I think it's -235 actually here in the UK. So I'm actually looking at using Sean O'Malley as a parlay piece. I think he wins this fight pretty handily over 15 minutes. I think this is a really good fight for him to really introduce him into that top 15 of that division, maybe in the top 10. Where he goes from there, I don't know, but I think Pedro Munhoz is a guy that he can beat. But I mean, you're probably looking at a little bit of a step down for Pedro here against Sean O'Malley, and he wants to see what this kid's all about. But my pick's going to be Sean O'Malley, and it's going to be Sean O'Malley via decision in that one there. This is the fight I think I'm looking forward to the most outside probably the next one after this, Volkanovski and Holloway. Sean Strickland against Alex Pereira. Potan, as they call him there, 5-1, which is kind of crazy. This guy's been really fast tracked. He's only had 2 fights in the UFC. Andreas Michailidis, he lost that first round. Bruno Silva, I think he probably lost the first round in that one there, or it might be in the second round actually, that he lost. So he's lost rounds in the UFC, and I think he's going against one of the guys there, this narcissist here who, I mean, if I knew 1,000,000% that this guy was going to come out and use takedowns, which I think are there for him, I would be right now. I would lay money down on Sean Strickland at +100, +105 actually in the UK here. But to me, I think he's going to come out and strike here, which obviously opens up the full striking of Alex Pereira, who obviously hits extremely hard, very, very good on the feet. But I actually think Sean Strickland can hang with him on the feet. I think that he's got, like I say, the guy I think is one of the biggest weirdos that there is in the sport. He talks so much crap. I fucking had to mute him across social media. He's ranted a little bit too much for me. But as a fighter, solid fighter. Really can put it all together. And I think this is a fight here. Obviously, the UFC want to put these guys in against Adesanya, especially in the Pereira side, who's obviously beat him in the kickboxing ways. But Strickland is, like, I mean, he's been around a hell of a long time. He's paid his dues. Was at 170, fought some guys down there, and now he's on a 5 or 6 fight win streak since coming back from that knockout loss to Zaleski dos Santos way back in 2018. And since, I mean, he's just been running through guys, really. He's not really looked out of his depth. Had that split against Jack Hermanson. That wasn't a split to me. I thought that Sean won that fairly comfortably. Uriah Hall beat him up at distance, got takedowns. Like I say, he has. Brendan Allen got a takedown, got 4 against Uriah Hall, got 3 against Court McGee. Araujo back in the day. Just looking at some of his numbers there, he did use to grapple. He's got a great jab. I think he can strike here with Pereira for extended parts of this fight. I don't think he should entirely stay in a striking matchup with a very decorated kickboxer. I think he can put him against the fence here. I think he can get takedowns. I think he can have a lot of time there where he can put him against the cage, dirty boxing, knees, just keep busy, because obviously if you're putting guys against the fence nowadays, if you're not doing anything with strikes with it, you're not winning rounds. It's just you're holding on. The judges at the minute are weird. Sport's kind of changing with the way they're judging fights. I'm probably going to end up betting Sean Strickland. I really like him as a dog play this week. I think his experience as an MMA fighter is second to none. Like coming on to 30 fights where it's only 6 or 7 for Pereira. I know he's had a ton of kickboxing fights, but this is different. I think he can have control time against the cage, get takedowns. Whether he keeps Pereira there, I don't know. But I think a submission play might not be a bad one for Sean Strickland. I'm going to pick Sean Strickland via decision. I think for spots of this fight, he will come out and strike. But for the most part, I think that he can mix up a little bit. I hope he does that as a betting man. Looking at the fight, I think it's there for him. But whether he does is another thing. But I think I want to play Sean Strickland this week. So I've got him to win that one via maybe a late sub or a decision. Co-main event of the night, we've got the trilogy fight between Alexander Volkanovski against Max Holloway. I think the line's off in this. I do. Let me bring up the line what it is here in the UK. Sorry, I should have had that up and ready to go. But this fight to me is a lot closer to what Volkanovski right now. Let me see. Let me bring that up. Sorry, guys. I should have had that ready and waiting to go. Right. So, Holloway is plus 170. The best you can get over here is plus 170. And the best you can get on Volkanovski is minus 188. I think those lines, I mean, if you think that Max Holloway won the last fight, you should make a play on Max Holloway. And I think the first fight was completely Volkanovski. I bet Max Holloway in that fight. I think that Volkanovski, although it looked close, I think he did win the fight. Second fight, I thought Holloway edged it. but it was very, very close, and you can't really claim a robbery there. I don't think I bet that fight. I think I stayed away. But this one here at minus plus 170 and Max Holloway. I mean, Volkanovski is a little tank. He's a destroyer. We've seen some great things from him since that last fight with Holloway. But we've also seen some great things from Holloway in his fights as well. So since that last win, came through to a tough spot against T-City, but ultimately bludged him up for like 25 minutes of that fight. Then the Korean Zombie fight, he just looked untouchable. Everything he threw landed. It really hurt the Korean Zombie, and then he got that 4th round stoppage there and absolutely beat the absolute piss out of the Korean Zombie in that one. But like I say, when you look at these two stats that they come from the first two fights, very, very close. I thought that Volkanovski, like I said, I thought he did win that first fight. It was very, very close one where it was very close in signature strikes. I thought the more impactful shots kind of did look on the Volkanovski side. Second one, Max had a couple of knockdowns in that fight. A couple of spots there where he really kind of landed clean on him and put him about. But, I mean, it was relatively close. There was takedowns there for Volkanovski. To me, I was on the Holloway side here. So, as a betting man, if I feel like there's a viable bet on Max Holloway. It's whether you see it playing out closer than that, because at plus 170, I think there's value at plus 170 in Holloway. I think the fight's going to be closer than what that is. If you think he wins, I think you take the shot. When you look at Holloway, we'll talk about his previous few fights. They've been great fights in different ways. The domination of Calvin Kattar, 445 strikes, signature strikes landed in that one. It kind of says everything about the kind of chin of Kattar, the durability that he's got, maybe the not much power that Holloway has got. So you'd be surprised if Holloway comes out here and maybe stops Volkanovski, who can eat a shot well, durable, fights through adversity. But then he moved on to the Yair Rodriguez fight, banger fight. Both guys landed a lot of strikes. I mean, Max lands a lot, but he also absorbs a ton as well. So there will be spots there where Volkanovski will land. He can chop that leg down, which he's done in the previous fights. But for me, I just think these rounds are going to play out very, very close. I think Volkanovski will look to mix it up. I think Max will predominantly look to strike. If he stops those takedowns and outlands him, I think he can win. He can win this fight. So I'm going back to the well on Max Holloway. This is probably going to be a silly pick, which is fine. But I just think there's value in the betting line. I think he can win this fight. But Volkanovski has leveled up, and he looks. I mean, if he wins this fight, do you see him really sticking around at 145 and making those weight cuts? Maybe move up to 155, get some more big names in there, because he's going to move into that division. He's instantly going to get a big name there. So for me, I'm going to pick Max Holloway. I think he gets the decision win this time. So am I looking at betting Max Holloway? If I'm picking him, I sure as hell I'm going to bet him. So plus 170, I'm going to see where the line goes. If it starts to drift, I will get on him. If it goes up a little bit, I will absolutely be on him. But I like that plus 170. I think it plays out a lot closer there. But I do think it's a close decision where the striking numbers could add up, and you're going to see that kind of larger, more impactful strikes should be counted there, and who wins that. So I'm going to pick Max Holloway via split decision in that one. I think he gets it done. But could we see a fourth fight? Absolutely we could, but we'll see how that goes. Main event of the night, Israel Adesanya against Jared Cannonier for the UFC middleweight championship. Israel Adesanya has turned himself into a middleweight GOAT if he hasn't already. The guys that he's beat, the names that are on his record are exemplary. Of course, he's got that 1-L on his record when he tried to go up and get that second belt against Jan Blachowicz there, where the size evidently just kind of played too much. But you look at the names who he's beat in this division. Marvin Vettori, Brad Tavares, a top 15 guy. Brunson, he always had the beating of Brunson. Anderson Silva, he was always going to win that. But the war with Kelvin Gastelum, where he showed you the grit, determination, he was ready to go in there and kind of die on his shield and come out of there with a very, very close decision win, but one that he ultimately deserved. Um, Blasting the chin off of Robert Whittaker and that one there in the second round, the kind of snore fest against Yoel Romero. But again, that's a tough guy to face. Paulo Costa comes out there, blasts him out there in the second round. Vittori again, Whittaker again. So he's lapping these guys. He's got some new blood coming up. Cannonier's come in here and absolutely deserved his shot with the people that he has beaten. Your Kelvin Gastelums, your Jack Hermansons, Derek Brunson's. So he's beaten the guys that he's had to. Took that L to Robert Whittaker. I think it's Izzy, then it's Whittaker, then it's Vittori for me. And he's just kind of right on the outside of that looking in, but he's the next in line here. Do I see him giving much problems to Adesanya? I don't. He's obviously he's came down from heavyweight to light heavyweight down to his new home at middleweight. And that power kind of sticks with him because he has knockout wins over Brunson, Hermanson, Anderson Silva obviously won that one via leg kicks there. But do you see him really mixing up? I don't. So it's striker, you've got the more powerful striker against the more technical, more diverse, more accurate, more faster, better combinations, better footwork, harder to hit. This to me is just Adesanya all day. I'd be very surprised if Israel kind of got beaten a striking fight by Jared Cannonier. Now, if Jared could come out here and get takedowns, Robert Whittaker got some momentary takedowns in the second fight. If he could somehow get those takedowns, then I absolutely think that he could be a little bit liver than I initially give him credit for. But when was the last time? I know he got a takedown against Derek Brunson, but he's not a guy that ultimately really goes for takedowns. He's one of these guys that you can take him down. He will get back to his feet quite quick, but once he gets back to his feet, he can start to put it on you, and he will start beating guys like your Dave Branches, your Derek Brunsons, like what happened there. But to me, I think Adesanya's the play here. I think Adesanya via decision is the play that I would make there. But you never know, Cannonier might start to get a bit aggressive and start eating some shots and could potentially be hurt with some shots there. So Israel Adesanya via decision is going to be my pick in that one there. So guys, that is my picks. Happy to be back with some predictions here for you. Hit that like button if you can. Leave me your picks in the comment section below. I'll be back next week. What card do we have next week? I'm not entirely sure. Let me bring up the schedule. Fiziev, is it? Fiziev against Dos Anjos. I want to say, yeah. And then we've got Ortega against T-City. Blades against Aspinall back in London. And then Pena v Muniz 2 from Dallas for 277. So happy to be back. All the very, very best, guys. Enjoy the fights when they come around this weekend. And yeah, all the best to you.